like to welcome everybody to the first episode of the Road to Riches podcast, the pilot episode, the season premiere, the highlight, probably the greatest thing you're going to see today. Um, my name is Eric Richards, um, the founder of Rich Investments Group, LLC. Started out as a independent real estate company based out of Ohio, but it has grown to be much more than that. We are doing multiple deals in Ohio and West Virginia. We've grown to doing buy and hold properties to where in the last 18 months, we are responsible for having approximately 80 doors for long term rentals, helping people with affordable housing to be able to control their household expenses by not gouging them on the rental market, which seems to be the status quo nowadays. We are also doing 2 to 3 fix and flips a month in our company that we can go in and take old, abandoned, distressed properties, fix them up, and make them new, which improves property values in the neighborhoods that we are doing them in, as well as allows people to come into nicely renovated houses because the cost of building new houses is so egregious with builders and materials. Not many people can afford to do it anymore. So we are kind of in a niche to where we can get in and do what we do on a large scale, and very fortunate to be able to do it. But we've built this from the ground up. So I want to take the successes that I've learned over the last 18 months to 2 years of building these companies, of building statuses, building procedures, building relationships mostly. And I would like to use that as the launch pad for this podcast. I would also, 50% of this podcast is going to be based on what I've done, what I've built, how I've come to this, because I believe in 100% transparency. I had no real estate background whatsoever when I got into this. Um, I actually had never even done a real estate transaction of my own when I first started this company. I started this company in June of 2022 with the entire purpose of finding a way to be home with my wife and kids. I had a 17-year career working for a construction union and the insulators union. And the last 8 of those years was on the road all of the time, traveling, building billion-dollar powerhouses or plants or refineries or whatever needed to be built at the time or refurbished at the time. I would go to those jobs and work 70, 80, 90 hours a week in order to provide for my family. But the problem was my family made, a very comfortable living. We had all the money in the world, but I was never there. Um, so the last job that I had done in the union, I was in Pittsburgh, PA on a large project, one of the largest in North America at the time. I went in on my tools as a worker for a couple of weeks, and then I got promoted to a foreman, and then was a foreman for a couple of weeks, and got promoted to a general foreman to the point to where at one point I had, you know, between 100 to 500 people working underneath me at any given time, and finished that project out. When I finished that project, I was there for 2 years, and essentially hadn't seen my wife or kids barely for 2 years. And when I got finished with that project, I took them on vacation. The last night we were at Myrtle Beach for the vacation. We were at Airbnb. We were on the back porch overlooking the beach. It was a very, very comfortable, very nostalgic kind of feel. And our youngest son climbed up on my lap and asked, when we get home, are you going back out on the road again to work? And I said, well, yeah, we had just moved to a new city, and um, my wife and the kids were living with in-laws until we found a new house. And I said, I need to work so that way we can buy a new house for you and mommy, so that way you can have your own room again and you can have your own backyard again and we can get back to having us as a family again. And he started crying and just said, I wish you could stay home because I miss you. And that was it. That was the last day that I was a construction worker. I essentially gave up 17-year career that day. I didn't sleep that night. Was coming back the next day. Was driving back from Myrtle Beach. I told my wife that I was done. I was not going back out on the road again. I wasn't traveling. The kids were getting old enough that um, they needed to have a father in their life. I needed to be home. I needed to be um, a constant. And it really hit home that that's what's important. So, sh honestly, giving up a large six-figure payroll salary is not ideal for anybody. But she said, "Well, what are we going to do for income? Because you make way more money than I do." And I said, "Well, we'll go home. We'll do the budget. We'll figure out what I need to make because we don't need me to make six figures. Let me go home and figure out what I need to make, and then that's my target, and I'll figure out how to go from there." So when we went home and we, you know, strapped everything down to the bare minimum and figured out what our needs were versus what our wants were. It turned out that I really only needed to make $43,000 a year. So that was my goal. That was the goal that I set in my mind that I was going to make $43,000 a year combined with her W-2 salary. And that would provide enough for us to be a family every night, tucking my kids into bed, every morning, taking them to school, being a consistent presence in their life. So that's what I had set out to do. And 43,000 a year is um, a lot of money for some people, but for some people they're like, man, that's pennies for me. But it's an incredible mountain to climb if you don't know how to get there. So I had spent the next 3 weeks looking for a way to transition out of construction and make that income. I knew I didn't want to go work for Lowe's or some commercial giant or some retailer. I'm not much of a worker bee as much as I am um, a savage, really. Like you give me a mountain to climb, you give me a goal to meet, you give me, a status that I need to reach out for and do it. I will do that and then exceed expectations every time, which is why I've, run most of the jobs in the union. I always started off as a worker, but always scaled up quickly. Um, but somebody had referenced to me about doing wholesaling and real estate. So I looked on YouTube University, where everybody looks for to learn anything nowadays. And I was looking at a individual named Jamil Damji. He is phenomenal space in wholesaling. He piloted Keegley Company, which is a franchise that you can buy into to do wholesaling as nationwide. I believe he has over 119 franchises for Keegley. He does a mentorship called Astro Flipping, where he teaches you everything you need to know about wholesaling and how to do it at a high level. An incredible person, incredible mentor for that group. So I was watching a lot of his videos on YouTube on how to get into wholesaling, and I was learning as much as I could for free with the anticipation that I was going to pay the money to get my own franchise for Keegley. Um, but Jamil at the time, and I believe they still have it, um, had an A&E show with a gentleman named Pace Morby called Triple Digit Flip. And Pace Morby also has his own mentorship, but he is the nation's foremost expert in using creative financing to purchase properties, flip properties, wholesale, and build wealth long term, as opposed to just wholesaling everything to where you're always chasing a deal. So it started out that I was watching 12 to 13 Jamil Damji videos a day, learning everything I could about wholesaling, learning about Keegley, and getting as much of the free information I could get before I bought into the mentorship. And the algorithm for YouTube would put in a Pace Morby video. So I would watch 12 Jamil videos and one Pace video. And then the next day I would watch 8 Jamil videos and four Paces. And then the day after that I would watch four Jamil and eight of Paces. And then I would watch one of Jamil and 12 of Paces, to the point to where what Pace Morby does and how he builds his community and how he essentially revolutionizes what creative financing can do for somebody and build long-term wealth, not just for them, but generational wealth for their wives and kids and families. I really resonated with that. And it's really something that I could bite into because all it takes is effort. All it takes is action. If you're willing to put in the work, you could basically set your own rules and set your own standards to build portfolios that will pay you dividends for the next 30, 40, 50 years and then some, if you're aggressive enough. So I really bought into what Pace was saying was possible. So I ended up joining his mentorship instead. I joined into the Sub 2 community. I did a 6 week online course learning creative finance, learning what it's the ins and outs, the procedures, the different strategies, in order to be able to build a portfolio and build relationships in that space. And from that, I got into a partnership with a couple of gentlemen just to learn. And they say you don't know what you don't know, and it's absolutely true. Um, I took a lot of action with these gentlemen, and it seemed like every time we had one good thing go right, we had two things go wrong, and we never really caught enough traction. We never really could get ahead. It was always kind of a break even on everything we could do. I did not make $43,000 with those, like I wanted to, for the year. It was a few and far between, I think, in that partnership. We lasted from September of 2022 until September of 2023. I did about 12 months with them and fought a lot of battles with them, fought, not with them, but, alongside them. We did a lot of deals together. We learned a lot of lessons together. But ultimately, I wanted to work with other people outside of them, and they wanted to move out on their own and do their own thing. So we amicably separated. Um, all of the rentals that we had up to that point, we had sold off, split the profits between them and myself. And they went their way and I went mine, and it was all amicable. I'm still friends with them. It would still help them at the drop of a hat today. But it just not all partnerships work. You really have to find somebody that fits with what your motive is, what your groove is, what you want to do in life, and that want to attack it as fiercely as you do. And that's the important thing. So from there, I set out and I started finding people that did fit my bill of sale, so to speak. People that did want to be um, large in the space and wanted to have rentals and wanted to do flips and wanted to build this out. So from essentially October 2023 to current date, that's what we've done. I have built incredible relationships and incredible partnerships. And from October of 23 to current, we have formulated 80 plus rentals, 2 to 3 flips a month. We have a wholesale division that we do 5 to 10 flips or 5 to 10 wholesales every month. We have a property management company that's coming live. We've built an incredible studio with quite possibly the sexiest engineer in 3 counties, you know, um, that we are creating a safe space for people who want to come in and do broadcasting or digital media, digital marketing, podcasting, to get their voices out, get their voices heard, and to build a following of their own and allow people to have the opportunity to say what's important to them, um, to a worldwide audience. And that's where we're broadcasting at from this evening. Road to Riches podcast, first one, to do that. So essentially, it's kind of my backstory, but this podcast specifically, Road to Riches, I will cover a lot of the finer details that what I've done in that 18-month span, 19-month span of how I went from essentially fire sailing everything and building this up. By the way, using none of my own money, only using other people's money to do this and using creative financing strategies and leveraging equity with hard money lenders or banks to be able to grow and build without having income invested in this. That is a huge proprietary resource that I'm going to give out for free during this podcast for anybody that wants to know. But the other side of it is I want to learn as well. I want to bring on guests to this podcast that are specialists in their field. If you are the best insurance agent in the area and have $10 million book of business. I want to know how you built. I want to know where you came from. What got you interested in it? What got you to that point? If you have 15 car franchises and are GM's high note and getting a free Tesla every year because of the amount of cars you sell and things like that, because you are that good at what you do, I want to talk to you. I want to learn from you. I want to know what makes you tick and what propels you to be so great in your field, because you don't have to be in real estate to be successful. You don't have to do what I've done to build something great. And I can take lessons from everybody that I talk to that have exceeded expectations, have built up their selves to be successful. And I can learn more from their trials and tribulations that most people don't ask about. I know to ask about it because I've had hundreds, if not thousands, of my own that we have overcome, we have surpassed, we have built from. I'm curious about what everybody else has done. And a large part of this podcast, The Road to Riches, is going to outline that road, the road that everybody else has taken to success, because there's somebody at home that is just tired of being mediocre, that is just tired of being what everybody told them they were going to be. They're just waiting for something to spark them to be better. And I want this podcast to give them that window to do it. I want this to be something that they put on when they're going to sleep. And subconsciously, they're like, oh man, I could have done this and been the greatest thing since sliced bread. And it sets them on their benchmark to do that. I don't believe there's enough people out there that are willing to be transparent and be open books to teach others. I strongly believe in collaboration over competition. I will absolutely teach anybody anything I know um, for them to be able to be successful and take a leg up. And that gives me joy. That gives me purpose. I know I'm going to be great. I don't have a bone in my body that doesn't meet expectations for me to be great. I refuse to fail. And some call it a gift, some call it a curse, but that's just who I am. But there's a lot of people out there that need that push or need to know it's possible. And that's what this podcast is about. I want to show you the possible. Um, there are a lot of misconceptions for people that have successes. There's a lot of rigmarole in the mainstream media about the 1% and we should tax the rich and go after them and be vindictive because they're successful. I'm curious about what has made them successful, because if that's the case, we can take more people from being in that middle class or lower class and project them up to be the successful class. And the more people that succeed, the better this country is going to be, the better this world's going to be, the better their lives are going to be. So I appreciate everybody that's tuning in for this. Once again, this is just the pilot episode. This is the beginning of um, a long, reoccurring weekly podcast that I'm going to be bringing those types of guests on. But this gives us the outline of what we're going to build off of. So subscribe, stay tuned. If there's something specific that you would like to know about, please put a comment in there or reach out to me via social media or um, our YouTube channel and let me know what it is. I'll find somebody. I'll find that person that fits your mold that you want to learn about. We'll bring them in. We'll have those questions. We'll have those hard conversations. I don't plan on pulling punches. I want to know the nitty gritty. I want to know what makes people tick, because that's where you really start learning life's lessons. So, once again, my name is Eric Richards, Rich Investments Group, filming out of RIG Studios, our new studio that we built. I appreciate you tuning in, and until next episode, thank you.